A stunning new controversy is sending shockwaves through royal circles as explosive claims from Tom Bower and Lady C cast fresh doubt on one of the most closely guarded stories surrounding Meghan Markle and Princess Lilibet. Behind the polished headlines and carefully managed public image, insiders suggest there may be far more to the story than the public has been told. Even more surprising, reports now hint that Prince Harry himself may have been left in the dark about crucial details. Could this revelation change everything we thought we knew? What do you think? Are these claims exposing hidden truths or fueling another royal storm? Share your opinion in the comments below. If you enjoy uncovering the latest royal developments and behind-the-scenes palace drama, please subscribe. Power couldn't stop the truth. Long before the public ever saw the finished books, the real battles were already being fought behind closed doors. According to both Tom Bower and Lady Colin Campbell, some of the world's most influential figures shared the same belief, that enough money, influence, and connections could stop an uncomfortable story from reaching the public. Time after time, that belief proved disastrously wrong. What made these confrontations so remarkable was not the accusations themselves, but the reaction they triggered. Bower's investigations were never built around a single witness, a lone leaked document, or a fleeting rumor. Instead, they relied on years of interviews, records, and carefully connected evidence. By the time his subjects understood the scale of what had been assembled, the foundation was already firmly in place. Lady C has often observed that powerful people frequently underestimate how damaging their own responses can become. Rather than allowing criticism to fade, they turn it into a larger spectacle. The more aggressively they fight, the more attention they attract. In many cases, the effort to silence a story ends up strengthening it. Few examples illustrate this pattern more clearly than Robert Maxwell. At the height of his influence, he commanded vast publishing interests and enjoyed extraordinary political access. Yet when scrutiny intensified, the response became deeply personal. Pressure mounted from multiple directions, creating a conflict that drew even greater interest. Then, in 1991, Maxwell's shocking death aboard his yacht transformed an already controversial story into an international mystery. What followed was even more dramatic. His business empire collapsed, financial scandals emerged, and countless ordinary workers discovered the devastating consequences hidden beneath the surface. The same lesson appeared elsewhere. Richard Branson chose the courtroom route, believing legal action could protect his reputation. Instead, the proceedings generated additional attention and left behind a permanent public record. Meanwhile, Conrad Black, whose influence stretched across continents, discovered that political friendships and media ownership offered little protection once documented evidence began accumulating. His eventual conviction became a dramatic conclusion to a story he believed could be contained. For both Bower and Lady C, the pattern is impossible to ignore. Again and again, influential figures with immense resources, elite advisors, and powerful allies attempted to bury investigations. Yet their resistance often became part of the evidence itself. The story was never simply about what was uncovered. It was also about how those at the center of the controversy responded when they realized they could no longer control the narrative. The Sussexes seemed protected by influence, media attention, and a carefully crafted public image that few dared to challenge. But what hidden details were Tom Bower and Lady C uncovering behind the scenes? Why did they believe the public story was missing crucial pieces? And how could their findings reshape everything people thought they knew? Let's find out. Tom Bower and Lady C's investigation. The Sussexes appeared to have everything on their side. Powerful legal teams, worldwide media attention, influential supporters, and a carefully shaped public image had helped create a protective shield around their story for years. Many believed that anyone who challenged that narrative would face enormous pressure. Yet what neither supporters nor critics fully anticipated was that two of the monarchy's most persistent commentators, Tom Bower and Lady C, were quietly examining details that stretched far beyond the headlines dominating public debate. By the time the public realized what was happening, much of the investigation had already been completed. Documents had been checked, accounts compared, and sources carefully reviewed. While countless discussions focused on interviews, media disputes, and accusations traded across both sides of the Atlantic, a different set of questions was beginning to emerge behind the scenes. Questions that could not easily be dismissed as tabloid gossip or political bias. The moment that drew widespread attention arrived on Halloween morning in October of 2022 during an appearance on Good Morning Britain. Viewers expected another routine discussion about royal affairs. Instead, Tom Bower delivered remarks with remarkable confidence, speaking as someone who had already spent months examining evidence. When challenged by the presenters, he did not retreat. He pointed to numerous specific inaccuracies he believed existed within the Sussex's public claims, listing them without hesitation and demonstrating the certainty of a man convinced that his research could withstand scrutiny. The clip spread rapidly across Britain, the United States, and beyond. Supporters of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle viewed the comments as unfair attacks, while critics saw them as overdue accountability. Yet both reactions overlooked a larger development. According to Bower and Lady C, the most significant discoveries were not centered solely on televised interviews or public relations battles. Their attention had shifted toward a far more sensitive subject: the story surrounding Princess Lilibet. Questions concerning her name, title, christening, and the carefully controlled release of information about her life began attracting increasing interest. Individually, each question seemed small. Together, however, they formed a pattern that investigators believed deserved closer examination. What made these questions especially difficult was that they touched on issues that could not be settled through legal threats or media campaigns alone. They challenged the foundations of a narrative built over several years. And as Bower continued connecting pieces from different sources, they argued that an entirely different picture was beginning to appear, one far more complicated than the public had ever been shown. For decades, one deeply personal royal name remained known only to a trusted few, protected from public view and royal scrutiny alike. So what happened when that name suddenly appeared in a global announcement? Why did it raise lasting questions? And what did both Tom Bower and Lady C believe the public had overlooked from the very beginning? Let's uncover the astonishing details. The royal name controversy unveiled. There are some names the world hears every day, and then there are names so personal, so carefully protected, that only a select few are ever allowed to speak them. For decades, one such name remained hidden deep within the private heart of the British royal family. Yet when that name suddenly appeared in a global announcement, it sparked questions that refused to disappear. And years later, those questions continue to echo through royal circles. What caught the attention of both Tom Bower and Lady C was never simply the choice of a baby's name. It was the story surrounding it, the conflicting explanations, and the remarkable silence that followed. During a television appearance in Britain, Bower made it clear he was not interested in creating headlines or winning a public debate. After spending years investigating royal controversies, he understood that the most revealing moments often arrive not through loud denials, but through what remains unsaid. The focus of the controversy was Lilibet, the deeply private childhood nickname of Queen Elizabeth II. Unlike the public titles and names known around the world, this was a treasured family name shared only among those closest to her. It survived decades of intense public attention and remained one of the rare pieces of the late Queen's life that never truly belonged to the public. Then, on June 2021, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle announced the birth of their daughter, Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor. Instead of bringing universal celebration, the announcement quickly opened a debate that spread from palace corridors to newsrooms across Britain. Reports from the BBC stated that the Queen had not been asked for permission before the name was used. Palace sources reportedly stood firmly behind that account. Harry's team responded just as strongly, insisting that the Queen had been consulted and had reacted warmly. Two completely different versions of the same event suddenly existed side by side. For Bower, that contradiction became the real story. The issue was not merely whether permission had been requested. It was why the disagreement emerged at all, why it appeared at that particular moment, and why the unanswered questions surrounding one deeply personal name continued to cast such a long shadow over the monarchy. 5 years later, A story that should have quietly faded continues to raise questions across royal circles. Why did a seemingly heartfelt birthday message reignite old controversy? And what contradiction do Tom Bower and Lady C believe still lies at the heart of the mystery? Stay with us as the unanswered questions begin to unravel. Lilibet mystery still sparks questions. 5 years later, the debate has not faded. What should have been a simple family story continues to spark curiosity, speculation, and uncomfortable questions across royal circles. When Meghan shared a birthday message for her daughter on the 4th of June 2026, celebrating Lily turning 5, the post appeared warm and personal, yet the restricted comments quickly drew attention. To many observers, it was a reminder that the conversation surrounding that name has never truly ended. Lady C has explored a contradiction they believe sits at the center of the story. At the very moment Harry and Meghan were presenting themselves as a couple breaking free from royal life, they chose a name tied to one of the monarchy's most private and cherished memories. To royal watchers, that decision seemed difficult to reconcile with the message they had spent months delivering to the world. The backdrop made the situation even more striking. After stepping back from royal duties, relocating to California, and giving high-profile interviews in which they described feeling unsupported and let down, Harry and Meghan appeared determined to create distance from the institution. Their public narrative was clear. They were moving on from royal life. Yet critics argued that naming their daughter after a deeply personal royal symbol suggested that the connection had never been completely severed. The discussion intensified during the Platinum Jubilee in June 2022. London became the center of global attention as celebrations marked 70 years of Queen Elizabeth's reign. Amid the pageantry, Harry and Meghan arrived with their children, creating one of the most closely watched moments of the event. Images of young Lilibet meeting her great-grandmother carried enormous emotional power. To the public, the photographs appeared touching and hopeful, offering a glimpse of family unity despite years of tension. Behind palace walls, however, some insiders reportedly viewed the timing differently. According to accounts discussed by Bower and Lady C, the appearance was seen by some not as a spontaneous family reunion, but as a carefully managed moment during the most visible royal occasion of the era. Whether fair or not, that perception ensured the controversy endured. And that is why, years after the headlines first appeared, the questions surrounding Lilibet's name continue to linger, refusing to disappear from the royal conversation. When Lilibet Diana appeared beside her great-grandmother during the Platinum Jubilee celebrations, the images seemed like ordinary family moments. But why did those photographs later take on such extraordinary significance? How did the passing of Queen Elizabeth II transform simple snapshots into treasured pieces of royal history, and what made them so important beyond palace control? Let's unravel the details. Lilibet's final bond with Queen. When Lilibet Diana appeared beside her great-grandmother during the Platinum Jubilee celebrations at Platinum Jubilee of Elizabeth II, few could have predicted how significant those images would become. The photographs traveled across the world, capturing a rare family moment that seemed simple at the time. Yet only a few months later, the passing of Queen Elizabeth II transformed those pictures into something far more meaningful. Suddenly, they were no longer just family snapshots. They became some of the final visual connections between the late Queen and her great-granddaughter, a powerful piece of royal history preserved outside palace control. Tom Bower has pointed to what happened next as one of the most fascinating contradictions in the ongoing story of Harry and Meghan. For years, public criticism of the monarchy had dominated headlines, especially after the couple's widely discussed interview with Oprah Winfrey. Questions surrounding titles, status, and treatment within the royal family became central to the debate. Yet when circumstances changed following the accession of King Charles III in September 2022, a remarkable shift occurred without fanfare. Under long-established royal rules, Archie and Lilibet automatically became the grandchildren of a reigning monarch. As a result, Lilibet became a princess by birthright. According to both commentators, what stood out was not the title itself, but the silence that followed. The earlier arguments over royal recognition had been highly public and emotionally charged. The resolution, however, arrived quietly. There were no major declarations, no lengthy explanations, and no public reflection on what accepting those royal titles meant after years of criticism directed at the institution that granted them. The discussion intensified again when Lilibet's christening took place in California during March 2023. The ceremony was private, far removed from the historic chapels, royal traditions, and ceremonial grandeur usually associated with such occasions in Britain. No senior royals attended, and the event unfolded thousands of miles from the royal world tied to her name. Viewed alone, it was simply a family's personal choice. Yet, through the lens presented by Tom Bower and Lady C, it reinforced a pattern they believe has defined the Sussex story, maintaining a connection to royal prestige while keeping a deliberate distance from the institution itself. Harry and Meghan often argued that some family moments deserved privacy, and many agreed. But if privacy was truly the goal, why did questions continue to follow them? What was it about the gap between their public narrative and what remained hidden that kept fueling controversy? And why have commentators like Tom Bower and Lady C insisted the real story lies elsewhere? Let's find out. Privacy, secrecy, and royal contradictions. Families are entitled to privacy. Few would argue that every deeply personal milestone should be placed on display for the world to examine. In fact, for years, Harry and Meghan built much of their public case around the belief that some moments should remain protected from public scrutiny. Yet, as Lady C has repeatedly suggested, the controversy surrounding their royal journey was never really about privacy alone. It was about the striking contrast between what was shared publicly and what was kept carefully out of sight. To understand why this debate refuses to fade, both commentators often return to a moment that reshaped global opinion. In March of 2021, during the widely watched interview with Oprah Winfrey, Meghan revealed concerns surrounding Archie before his birth. The discussion touched on royal titles and, more importantly, carried the implication that race may have influenced how her son was viewed within the institution. The impact was immediate. Across living rooms from London to Los Angeles, the conversation shifted dramatically. What had once appeared to be a royal family disagreement was suddenly framed as something far larger, a story about belonging, identity, and protection. Lady C has argued that the interview was carefully crafted and impossible to separate from the broader narrative that followed. Bower, meanwhile, focused less on emotion and more on patterns. For him, the real significance emerged later, when Princess Lilibet's christening took place quietly in California. By then, following changes in the line of succession, both Archie and Lilibet were entitled to be known as Prince and Princess. Yet the ceremony remained detached from royal traditions, with no visible involvement from the institutions whose titles continued to carry such importance. This is where both writers find their strongest argument. They do not present the issue as a simple accusation of hypocrisy. Instead, they point to what they see as a recurring strategy. When royal status strengthened a message, enhanced visibility, or reinforced a narrative, it was embraced. When participation in royal life demanded obligations or closer ties to the institution, distance often followed. Whether one agrees with that interpretation or not, it remains one of the most debated questions surrounding the Sussex story, and perhaps the reason the discussion continues years later. No official statement was issued, no interview was granted, and no public defense emerged yet. The silence only intensified the scrutiny. Why did Prince Harry and Meghan choose not to respond when pressure was mounting? Was this a calculated strategy? Or did the revelations uncovered by Tom Bower and Lady C leave them facing a challenge too complex to confront publicly? Let's uncover the intriguing details. Silence fuels. Meghan Lilibet, controversy. There are moments when no statement is released, no interview is given, and no public defense appears, yet the message becomes impossible to miss. That was the atmosphere surrounding the growing controversy explored by Tom Bower, a situation where the absence of words seemed to attract more attention than any carefully prepared response ever could. As their findings reached the public, many expected an immediate pushback from Prince Harry and Meghan. After all, this was not a couple unfamiliar with defending themselves when they believed a claim was unfair. Their history had already demonstrated a willingness to fight public battles through legal channels. In 2021, Meghan secured a major victory against the Mail on Sunday in a case involving a private letter to her father, proving that powerful lawyers and determined legal action were tools readily available to the Sussex camp. That is what made the reaction to Bauer's claims so fascinating. According to publishing practice, advance copies were provided before release, giving ample time for factual challenges, legal objections, corrections, or strongly worded public responses. Weeks passed, yet the expected counterattack never arrived. Lady C suggested that this silence carried significance of its own, while Bauer pointed toward the practical realities of legal warfare. Challenging a detailed, sourced account in court can trigger a process requiring documents, communications, and sworn testimony from all sides. In such circumstances, a lawsuit does not merely challenge allegations, it can place every related claim under a powerful spotlight. For many observers, the lack of legal action appeared less like hesitation and more like calculation. Yet another quiet response raised even more questions. Buckingham Palace remained remarkably restrained. That was notable because royal households have long demonstrated an ability to shape public narratives when necessary. Over decades, stories viewed as harmful to the institution have often been met with briefings, official statements, or carefully managed communication strategies designed to redirect attention. This time, however, the palace largely stood aside. No major effort emerged to dismantle the allegations or discredit the discussion. For Bauer and Lady C, that absence became part of the story itself. In the end, the controversy was shaped not only by what was said, but by what remained unsaid, creating a mystery that continues to fascinate royal watchers on both sides of the Atlantic. Prince Harry and Meghan dismissed the accusations as conspiracy theories and royal melodrama, yet the palace's response was far more intriguing than the claims themselves. Why did an institution known for protecting its image choose near total silence? What did the palace understand that others didn't? And how did that silence transform an already explosive controversy? Let's unravel the details. Palace silence fuels royal controversy. Deranged conspiracy theories and royal melodrama. That was the label Prince Harry and Meghan gave to the growing wave of criticism surrounding the books and commentary produced by Tom Bauer. Yet what made their claims so fascinating was not the criticism itself, but the reaction that followed from the royal institution they had spent years challenging. The palace, known for its carefully measured responses, seemed to choose a different strategy altogether. It said almost nothing. For experienced royal observers, that silence spoke louder than any official statement. Both Tom Bauer and Lady C repeatedly pointed to a pattern long understood by those who had watched royal communications for decades. When a story threatens the monarchy, quiet discussions often happen behind closed doors. But when a story is considered useful, the palace can simply step back and allow it to travel on its own. As public debate intensified, many began wondering whether the absence of a response was itself sending a message. The real impact of Bauer's work was not that it added another chapter of negative headlines. According to Bauer, it did something much more significant. It challenged the foundation of a narrative that had dominated global attention since Harry and Meghan's departure from royal life. For years, audiences had been presented with a powerful account of a couple who felt abandoned, unsupported, and forced to leave in order to protect themselves and their family. Delivered from their California estate in highly controlled settings, the story resonated across the world because it felt deeply personal and emotionally compelling. But instead of offering a competing emotional argument, Bauer focused on documented events. He assembled names, meetings, titles, visits, decisions, and timelines, placing them side by side with records and sources. Lady C echoed similar observations, arguing that the picture that emerged was far more complex than the simple battle between victims and institution that many had accepted. By the time public opinion began shifting around the release of Bauer's book in 2022, the discussion had changed. The question was no longer whether Harry and Meghan had grievances. It was whether they had also mastered the very royal system they criticized. In that quiet space between accusation and evidence, a far more complicated story began to take shape, one that neither headlines nor interviews could easily control. The headlines may have faded, But a far more consequential battle was quietly unfolding behind closed doors. What made credibility become the real issue for Meghan and Harry? And how did a series of events lead to competing narratives that neither public statements nor major media deals could contain? Let's find out. Tom Bower exposes Sussex credibility crisis. Long after the headlines faded and the cameras moved on, a quieter battle continued behind the scenes, one that neither streaming deals nor carefully managed public statements could fully control. According to both Tom Bower and Lady Colin Campbell, the real issue surrounding Meghan and Harry was never simply about contracts, documentaries, or royal disputes. It was about credibility and what happens when competing versions of the same story collide in the public arena. When Spotify ended its partnership with the Sussexes in 2023, the official explanation focused on content production and the challenges of delivering agreed projects. On the surface, it appeared to be a routine business decision, no different from many others in the competitive entertainment industry. Yet the development quickly sparked wider discussion among commentators, media analysts, and industry observers. A broader question began to emerge. Had the value of the Sussex brand started to change? Their commercial appeal had long relied on public trust in their narrative. As alternative interpretations, supported by interviews, documents, and investigations, gained attention, the debate became increasingly complex. Lady Colin Campbell repeatedly argued that emotional storytelling alone could not guarantee lasting public trust. Bower approached the same subject from another angle. Rather than treating personal grievances as unquestionable truths, he examined them with the same scrutiny often applied to political figures, public institutions, and powerful organizations. That approach transformed the debate. The focus gradually moved away from what was being claimed and toward whether those claims could withstand examination. Meanwhile, Hollywood adjusted with its usual practicality. Projects were announced, postponed, reworked, and reassessed. Netflix productions generated attention, but discussion increasingly extended beyond the screen itself. Journalists, commentators, and critics compared public narratives with competing accounts, creating a situation that was difficult to counter. It was not a dramatic collapse. It was a slow narrowing of narrative control. Yet perhaps the most revealing chapter emerged from something surprisingly small: a birthday message. A post celebrating Princess Lilibet's 5th birthday appeared online with comments restricted. To supporters, it was a simple family tribute. To critics, including Bower and Lady Colin Campbell, it symbolized a larger pattern, questions remaining unanswered while discussion was carefully managed. Years after the famous interviews and public declarations, the debate persists because the central questions have never fully disappeared. Instead, they continue resurfacing, ensuring that this story remains unfinished despite every effort to bring it to a close. So what do you think Tom Bower and Lady C uncovered about Meghan's Lilibet story that reportedly caught Harry completely off guard? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe.